In the annals of Roman history, few names resonate as strongly as Pompey the Great Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, a figure of towering ambition and unparalleled military brilliance. Pompey was both a hero of the Republic and a tragic emblem of its fall. From the battlefields of Spain to the courts of Rome, his life was a symphony of triumphs and betrayals, love and loss, political cunning and personal vulnerability. Yet, behind the glory and the bloodshed, the story of Pompey is also the story of 5 remarkable women who shaped his destiny, each leaving an indelible mark on his life and legacy. The late Roman Republic was a world where alliances were forged in the crucible of marriage, a stage where the personal and the political were inextricably intertwined. For Pompey, these marriages were more than unions of the heart. They were carefully calibrated moves on the chessboard of power. His wives Antistia, Aemilia Scaura, Mucia Tertia, Julia, and Cornelia Metella each played roles that extended far beyond the domestic sphere. They were confidants, political pawns, and, in many cases, the anchors that steadied him amidst the chaos of a fractious republic. This story begins with Antistia, a young bride whose quiet life was uprooted by Pompey's rise. In a society where women's worth was often tied to their fathers or husbands, Antistia's marriage to Pompey was a stepping stone for his early ambitions. Yet her story ends in heartbreak, a casualty of Pompey's loyalty to the ruthless dictator Sulla. Her quiet suffering and ultimate obscurity reflect the harsh realities of a world where even love could be sacrificed for power. Then came Aemilia Scaura, a woman thrust into Pompey's life by the iron will of Sulla. Aemilia was not only a symbol of Sulla's dominance over Rome, but also over Pompey himself. Their marriage, brief and marked by tragedy, set the stage for Pompey's later defiance of political masters, a defiance that would define his career. Aemilia's death, while overshadowed by her role as a political pawn, left Pompey with a hardened resolve and a deeper understanding of the cost of ambition. Mucia Tertia was Pompey's partner during the longest period of stability in his career. She bore him children, managed his household, and provided the semblance of a traditional Roman family life. But even this stability was illusory. Allegations of infidelity and the pressures of Pompey's burgeoning career ultimately led to their separation. Mucia's fall from grace marked a turning point, signaling Pompey's transition from a statesman with familial ties to a solitary figure consumed by power and rivalry. The most poignant chapter in Pompey's life came with Julia, the beloved daughter of Julius Caesar. In a rare twist of fate, this marriage brought genuine affection into Pompey's life. Julia was more than a wife. She was a bridge between 2 of Rome's most powerful men. Her presence tempered Pompey's ambitions and fostered an uneasy peace between him and Caesar. But her untimely death shattered that balance. With Julia's passing, the fragile alliance between Pompey and Caesar dissolved, paving the way for civil war. Her death was not just a personal tragedy for Pompey. It was a turning point for the Republic itself. Finally, Cornelia Metella entered Pompey's life as his last companion, a figure of loyalty and strength in his twilight years. Cornelia stood by Pompey as he faced his greatest challenges. From the battlefield of Pharsalus to the shores of Egypt, her intelligence and grace provided solace during his darkest days. Even after Pompey's assassination, Cornelia's resilience ensured that his legacy would endure, a testament to her unyielding devotion. Together, these 5 women formed a mosaic of love, power, and tragedy that defined Pompey's life. Through them, we see not only the man but also the republic he served, a republic teetering on the brink of transformation, where personal ambition often clashed with public duty. Their stories, intertwined with Pompey's, offer a lens through which we can better understand the complexities of his character and the turbulent world he inhabited. In the chapters that follow, we will journey through the lives of these remarkable women, exploring their influence on Pompey and their own fates in a world ruled by ambition and violence. From Antistia's quiet suffering to Cornelia's enduring loyalty, their stories illuminate the personal side of a man whose name has become synonymous with the grandeur and fall of Rome. This is not just the story of Pompey the Great, It is the story of those who stood beside him, for better or worse, as he carved his name into history. In the dusty streets of Picenum, where Pompey the Great's early life unfolded, the tale of Antistia began not as one of grandeur, but as a quiet chapter in a story destined for the pages of history. She was young, scarcely more than a girl, when her life intertwined with that of Gnaeus Pompeius, the ambitious son of a prominent but controversial Roman general, Pompeius Strabo. In those days, the name Pompey carried weight, though not yet the brilliance it would later command. And for Antistia, marriage into this family promised security, status, and a future intertwined with the rising fortunes of the Republic. Antistia was the daughter of Publius Antistius, a respected judge and senator who had navigated the turbulent waters of Roman politics with a steady hand. Her upbringing in a traditional Roman household prepared her for the role expected of a patrician wife, dutiful, loyal, and supportive. Yet, as was common in Rome, her marriage to Pompey was not one of love but of political necessity. Strabo, Pompey's father, sought to consolidate his family's influence in Picenum by aligning with the Antistii, a family known for its judicial acumen and connections in the Senate. The wedding was a modest affair by Roman standards, reflecting the precarious political climate of the time. Sulla and Marius, two towering figures of Roman politics, were locked in a brutal struggle for dominance, and the Republic itself seemed to teeter on the edge of chaos. For Antistia, the union was an opportunity to transition from her father's home to one of equal standing. For Pompey, however, the marriage was a stepping stone, an alliance to secure local support as he began to forge his path in the shadow of his father. Life as the wife of young Pompey was not without its trials. Pompey inherited his father's fiery ambition, and even in his early years, he displayed a restlessness that hinted at his future greatness. Antistia, by contrast, embodied steadiness and patience, qualities that would later prove both a blessing and a curse. She was the silent observer of Pompey's growing aspirations, a witness to his charm and cunning as he began building a network of allies and solidifying his position in Roman society. But Antistia's life would take a dramatic turn in 87 BCE, when her husband's father, Pompeius Strabo, met his end under circumstances as controversial as his life. Strabo's death left Pompey vulnerable, a young man thrust into the treacherous world of Roman politics without the guidance of his father. Sulla, the emerging power in Rome, saw potential in Pompey and began grooming him as an ally in his campaign to wrest control of the Republic from Marius and his supporters. For Antistia, Sulla's arrival marked the beginning of a personal tragedy. While Sulla appreciated Pompey's military acumen and charisma, he saw no value in the young man's marriage to Antistia. In Sulla's calculations, every aspect of Pompey's life needed to serve the cause of political supremacy. And Antistia, the daughter of a family with limited political leverage, did not fit into this vision. Sulla demanded that Pompey divorce Antistia and marry Aemilia Scaura, the daughter of his wife Metella. For Pompey, refusing Sulla was unthinkable. The stakes were too high. Though he was known for his loyalty to friends and allies, Pompey's loyalty to the Republic and to his own ambitions superseded all else. With a heavy heart, he complied. Antistia's world crumbled in an instant. The young woman, barely in her 20s, found herself cast aside, a pawn in the grand game of Roman politics. The divorce was not merely a legal act, it was a public humiliation. To compound her grief, Antistia's father, Publius Antistius, was so devastated by the dishonor brought upon his family that he took his own life. The loss of her husband and her father left Antistia adrift, a symbol of the sacrifices demanded by the Republic's unyielding pursuit of power. For Pompey, the decision to divorce Antistia was a necessary evil, one that secured his position under Sulla's patronage and paved the way for his meteoric rise. Yet, it also marked a turning point in his character. The man who would later be celebrated for his magnanimity and loyalty had, in his early years, shown a willingness to sacrifice personal bonds for political gain. Antistia faded from the historical record after her divorce, her fate a mystery lost to time. Yet her story remains a poignant reminder of the human cost of ambition. In the grand narrative of Pompey's life, Antistia is often overshadowed by his later wives, whose roles in his career were more prominent. But her influence on Pompey, though subtle, was profound. Her quiet strength and resilience in the face of betrayal may have planted the seeds of reflection in the man who would later strive to balance personal loyalty with political necessity. As we look back on Antistia's brief chapter in Pompey's life, we see the contours of a republic in turmoil, where even love and loyalty were commodities to be traded. Her story, though often overlooked, is an essential piece of the mosaic that forms the life of Pompey the Great, a life as complex and multifaceted as the republic he sought to serve and control. In the turbulent years of the late Roman Republic, power was the ultimate currency, and every relationship, every alliance, was a calculated move in the grand chessboard of politics. It was in this world of ruthless ambition that Aemilia Scaura entered Pompey the Great's life, not as a partner of choice but as a pawn in the hands of Lucius Cornelius Sulla, Rome's most dominant figure at the time. Their union was a brief but pivotal chapter in Pompey's life, one that reflected the cold realities of Roman politics and left lasting scars on his journey to greatness. Aemilia Scaura was born into privilege and power. As the daughter of Sulla's wife, Metella, and the late Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, a distinguished statesman, Aemilia embodied the very essence of Roman aristocracy. Her lineage was impeccable, her connections invaluable, and her destiny seemingly tied to the upper echelons of Roman society. Yet, even for someone of her stature, personal choice was often secondary to political expediency. Sulla, her stepfather, viewed her not as an individual but as a tool to solidify his influence and ensure loyalty among his allies. When Sulla demanded that Pompey divorce Antistia, it was not simply a gesture of personal control but a strategic maneuver. Aemilia, already pregnant by her previous husband, Manius Acilius Glabrio, was to marry Pompey, thus binding the young general's rising star to Sulla's own dominance. The union was controversial and unconventional, even by Roman standards. Aemilia's pregnancy was no secret, and the hasty dissolution of her prior marriage drew whispers across the Republic. Yet, in Sulla's calculations, appearances mattered less than results. For Pompey, the marriage was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it secured his position as a favored lieutenant of Sulla, granting him the political capital necessary to advance his ambitions. On the other, it thrust him into a deeply uncomfortable personal situation. Aemilia, though noble and intelligent, was not a woman he had chosen, and their marriage lacked the foundation of mutual affection or respect. Pompey, who had already sacrificed much for his allegiance to Sulla, now faced the stark reality of a personal life dictated entirely by political necessity. Aemilia herself was caught in a web of circumstances beyond her control. As a woman in Roman society, her agency was limited, and her worth was often measured by her ability to serve the ambitions of the men around her. Despite her aristocratic lineage, Aemilia's life was marked by a series of upheavals: the loss of her father, a forced remarriage, and the public scrutiny that accompanied her every move. Yet, she bore these challenges with the dignity expected of a Roman matron, navigating the treacherous waters of politics with quiet strength. Their marriage, however, was short-lived. In 82 BCE, barely months after the wedding, Aemilia died in childbirth, leaving Pompey widowed for the second time in his young life. Her death was a personal tragedy for Pompey, but also a moment of reflection. For a man driven by ambition, the loss of Aemilia served as a stark reminder of the human cost of power. Though their marriage had been devoid of passion, her death left a void that underscored the sacrifices demanded by his allegiance to Sulla. In the aftermath of Aemilia's death, Pompey threw himself into his military campaigns with renewed fervor. he rose swiftly through the ranks, earning victories in Africa and Hispania that would solidify his reputation as one of Rome's greatest generals. Yet, the shadow of his personal sacrifices lingered. Aemilia's death, coupled with the dissolution of his marriage to Antistia, marked a period of emotional detachment for Pompey, as he increasingly prioritized his public duties over his private life. For Sulla, the marriage had served its purpose. With Aemilia's death, any lingering ties between Pompey and her family were severed, allowing Sulla to maintain his control over the young general without the complications of familial obligations. Sulla's influence over Pompey remained strong, but the cracks in their relationship would begin to show in the years that followed, as Pompey's ambitions grew beyond the confines of his mentor's shadow. Aemilia Scaura's role in Pompey's life, though brief, was emblematic of the sacrifices demanded by the Republic's relentless pursuit of power. She was a woman born into privilege but stripped of agency, her life dictated by the ambitions of the men around her. Her death marked the end of a turbulent chapter in Pompey's journey, but also the beginning of his transformation into a leader willing to challenge even the most powerful figures in Rome. As history turned its pages, Aemilia faded into the background, her memory overshadowed by the grander narratives of Pompey's conquests and political maneuvers. Yet, her story remains a poignant reminder of the human cost of ambition, the sacrifices made in the name of power, and the fleeting nature of alliances forged in the crucible of politics. Pompey's life would go on to greater triumphs and tragedies, but the lessons of his union with Aemilia of loyalty, sacrifice, and the fragility of human connections would echo through the corridors of his career, shaping the man who would become one of Rome's most celebrated figures. After the tumult of his earlier marriages, Pompey the Great sought stability. The loss of Antistia and the brief, politically charged union with Aemilia Scaura had left Pompey not only emotionally detached but also acutely aware of the political power marriage could wield. Enter Mucia Tertia, a woman of impeccable lineage and a representative of one of the most distinguished families in Rome. Their marriage would span nearly 2 decades, marking the longest and most stable personal relationship of Pompey's life. However, beneath the surface of their union lay tensions and challenges that reflected both the man and the republic he served. Mucia Tertia belonged to the powerful Muciae Scivoli family, known for its influence in Roman legal and political circles. Her family's prominence made her an ideal match for Pompey, now a rising star in Rome. Their marriage, arranged around 79 BCE, came at a time when Pompey's career was on the ascent. With Sulla's death the previous year, Pompey had begun to carve out his own path, earning acclaim through his military campaigns and consolidating his political power. Mucia brought not only prestige but also a veneer of respectability to Pompey's ambitious pursuits. For the next several years, Mucia played the role expected of a Roman matron, managing Pompey's household, supporting his career, and bearing his children. Together, they had 3: Gnaeus Pompeius, Sextus Pompeius, and Pompeia Magna. These children would later become central figures in the tumultuous aftermath of Pompey's life, carrying both the weight of their father's legacy and the consequences of his decisions. Mucia's life during these years was one of contrast. Publicly, she was the devoted wife of one of Rome's most celebrated generals. Privately, she managed a household often disrupted by Pompey's long absences on military campaigns, his conquests in Spain, his triumph over the pirates of the Mediterranean, and his victories in the East kept him away from Rome for years at a time, while Mucia maintained the household in his absence. She also navigated the complex dynamics of Roman society, where whispers of scandal and political intrigue could elevate or destroy reputations. Despite their outwardly successful union, cracks began to appear in their relationship. Pompey's growing power brought with it increased scrutiny, and Mucia's behavior became a topic of speculation among Rome's elite. Rumors of infidelity began to circulate, fueled by Pompey's enemies and those jealous of his meteoric rise. Roman historians, including Cicero and Suetonius, would later suggest that Mucia had been unfaithful during Pompey's extended absences, though the veracity of these claims remains uncertain. By 61 BCE, the marriage had reached its breaking point. Upon his triumphant return to Rome following his eastern campaigns, Pompey divorced Mucia. The reasons for the divorce remain a subject of debate among historians. Pompey cited her alleged infidelity, but it is equally likely that the separation was politically motivated. As Pompey's ambitions grew, so too did his need for alliances that could secure his position in Rome's volatile political landscape. Mucia, though a member of a prominent family, no longer aligned with Pompey's long-term goals. The divorce was a public affair, as was customary in Rome, and it brought Mucia's character under harsh scrutiny. For a woman of her standing, the allegations of infidelity were a severe blow, tarnishing her reputation and casting a shadow over her future. Yet, Mucia's story did not end in disgrace. She would later remarry Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, prominent politician, and her connections ensured her continued relevance in Roman society. For Pompey, the dissolution of his marriage to Mucia marked a turning point. It signaled his willingness to shed personal relationships that no longer served his ambitions. In the years that followed, he would align himself with Julius Caesar through his marriage to Julia, a union that would temporarily stabilize his political position but ultimately lead to his downfall. Mucia's influence on Pompey, while less direct than that of his later wives, was significant. As the mother of his children, she secured his legacy, ensuring that the Pompeian name would endure beyond his death. Her long partnership with Pompey provided him with a semblance of domestic stability during a critical period of his career, allowing him to focus on his military and political ambitions. Yet, their union also highlighted the challenges of balancing personal relationships with the demands of power in a republic increasingly defined by its fragility. Mucia Tertia's story is one of resilience and adaptability. Despite the rumors and the eventual breakdown of her marriage to one of Rome's most powerful men, she navigated the complexities of Roman society with poise. Her life, like that of many women in the late Republic, was shaped by forces beyond her control, yet she found ways to assert her agency and maintain her place in history. For Pompey, Mucia's departure marked the end of an era. The man who had once sought stability now embraced the chaos and uncertainty of Rome's political arena, a path that would lead him to alliances both promising and perilous. As we move forward in his story, the shadow of Mucia Tertia looms large, a reminder of the sacrifices and compromises that defined Pompey's relentless pursuit of greatness. In the twilight years of the Roman Republic, alliances were often cemented not with treaties or victories but with marriages. For Pompey the Great, a man who had climbed the rungs of power through strategic unions and military brilliance, his fourth marriage would prove unlike any other. It was not merely a political arrangement but a union that brought him genuine affection and love. This was his marriage to Julia, the daughter of Julius Caesar, a woman whose life and death would become the hinge on which the fate of the Republic turned. The year was 59 BCE, and Rome was a city on edge. The first triumvirate, a fragile alliance between Pompey, Caesar, and the immensely wealthy Crassus, held the reins of power, but each man knew that trust was a rare commodity in Roman politics. To solidify their pact, Caesar proposed an extraordinary gesture, the marriage of his beloved daughter Julia to Pompey, a man nearly twice her age. For Caesar, this was a calculated move, but for Pompey, it would become a personal turning point. Julia was renowned for her beauty, grace, and intelligence. Despite her youth, she was in her early 20s at the time of their marriage. She possessed a poise that belied her age. Raised in Caesar's household, she had been groomed for a life of influence, though even she could not have anticipated the role she would play in one of Rome's most critical alliances. Her marriage to Pompey, while initially political, blossomed into something far deeper, a rarity in a society where love was often a secondary concern in the affairs of the powerful. From the outset, Julia's presence had a calming effect on Pompey. In her, he found a partner who not only shared his ambitions, but also brought a sense of emotional fulfillment he had not experienced in his previous marriages. Unlike the distant partnerships of his past, his relationship with Julia was marked by mutual respect and affection. Roman historians later recounted with surprise how deeply Pompey seemed to care for her, often departing from his otherwise stoic demeanor to dote on his young wife. For Julia, her marriage to Pompey brought her into the heart of Roman politics, where she quickly gained a reputation for her charm and tact. She acted as a bridge between her father and her husband, tempering their egos and ensuring the stability of the triumvirate. Her influence on Pompey extended beyond the personal. She urged him toward moderation, steering him away from the more ruthless strategies that had characterized his earlier career. Yet, their union was not without its challenges. The political landscape of Rome was fraught with tension, as the ambitions of the triumvirs increasingly clashed. Pompey, though still an ally of Caesar, began to feel uneasy about his father-in-law's growing power. Caesar, for his part, viewed Pompey with a mix of admiration and suspicion, knowing that their alliance could easily crumble under the weight of their competing ambitions. In this volatile environment, Julia's role as peacemaker became ever more critical. Despite the turbulence around them, Pompey and Julia's marriage flourished. Pompey, who had once been known for his pragmatism and detachment, became openly devoted to his wife. They spent as much time together as his duties allowed, and Julia accompanied him to public events, a visible symbol of their union. Their relationship was a rare beacon of harmony in the increasingly fractious world of Roman politics. But fate would deal them a cruel hand. In 54 BCE, Julia, pregnant with their first child, died in childbirth. The loss was devastating for Pompey. Roman sources describe him as inconsolable, retreating into himself in the weeks and months that followed. Her death was not only a personal tragedy but also a political catastrophe. With Julia gone, the bond between Pompey and Caesar began to unravel, setting the stage for the civil war that would ultimately destroy the Republic. Julia's death sent shockwaves through Rome. Her passing marked the end of the triumvirate's fragile unity and signaled the beginning of a bitter rivalry between her father and her husband. Without Julia to mediate, Pompey and Caesar drifted further apart, their mutual distrust hardening into open hostility. By the time Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BCE, signaling the start of the Civil War, the alliance they had once shared was a distant memory. In the years that followed, Pompey would reflect on the life he had built with Julia. She had brought him not only happiness but also a sense of purpose beyond the battlefield and the Senate chamber. Her death left a void that no subsequent relationship could fill, even as he faced Caesar on the plains of Pharsalus. Pompey must have felt the weight of her absence, a reminder of what might have been had fate been kinder. Julia's influence on Pompey cannot be overstated. She softened his edges, humanized him in the eyes of his contemporaries, and brought a rare moment of stability to his tumultuous life. Her death, however, marked a turning point, not just for Pompey but for the Republic itself. With her gone, the forces of ambition and rivalry that had long simmered beneath the surface exploded into open conflict, forever altering the course of Roman history. As history turned its gaze to the epic struggles between Pompey and Caesar, Julia's role in their story often faded into the background. Yet, her brief life and tragic death were the fulcrum on which the fate of Rome rested. For Pompey, she was not merely a wife but a partner and a symbol of the peace he could never fully achieve. Her legacy, though overshadowed by the grander narratives of power and war, endures as a poignant reminder of the personal costs of ambition and the fragility of human connections in a world dominated by the pursuit of greatness. The death of Julia left Pompey the Great adrift, both personally and politically, as the fragile alliance between him and Julius Caesar disintegrated. Pompey found himself navigating the volatile landscape of Roman power without the emotional anchor that Julia had provided. Yet, Even in the midst of this turmoil, Pompey's life was far from devoid of companionship. In Cornelia Metella, his fifth and final wife, Pompey found a steadfast partner who would remain by his side through the most challenging years of his life. Their union marked the beginning of Pompey's final act, a chapter defined by loyalty, tragedy, and the relentless march toward his downfall. Cornelia Metella came from one of Rome's most prestigious families, the Metelli. Her father, Quintus Caecilius Metellus Scipio, was a prominent senator and a staunch supporter of Pompey in the escalating conflict with Caesar. At the time of their marriage in 52 BCE, Cornelia was still in her early 20s, more than 30 years younger than her new husband. Despite the age gap, their marriage was a harmonious one, built on mutual respect and shared political interests. Cornelia's youth and intelligence brought a renewed vigor to Pompey's life, while her political connections strengthened his position in the Senate. Cornelia was no stranger to the complexities of Roman politics. As a daughter of the Metelli, she had been raised to navigate the intricacies of power and influence with grace and skill. Her first marriage, to the young and brilliant Publius Crassus, had ended tragically when Crassus was killed during his father's ill-fated campaign against the Parthians in 53 BCE. Widowed at a young age, Cornelia returned to Rome, where her beauty and intellect quickly caught Pompey's attention. Their marriage was not just a personal union but also a political alliance. At a time when Rome was on the brink of civil war, Cornelia's connections to the aristocratic Optimates faction provided Pompey with vital support. Her father, Metellus Scipio, became one of Pompey's closest allies, commanding forces on his behalf during the eventual conflict with Caesar. Yet, Cornelia was far more than a political pawn. Her loyalty to Pompey and her unwavering support during his darkest hours made her an indispensable figure in his life. As tensions between Pompey and Caesar reached a boiling point, Cornelia stood by her husband, even as the tides of fortune began to turn against him. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BCE, Pompey was forced to flee Rome, taking Cornelia with him. Together, they traveled to Greece, where Pompey began to rally his forces for the coming confrontation. Cornelia, accustomed to the comforts of Rome, adapted quickly to the harsh realities of life on the move, her resilience and determination mirroring her husband's own resolve. The decisive moment came in 48 BCE at the Battle of Pharsalus, where Pompey's forces faced off against Caesar's in a clash that would determine the future of the Republic. Cornelia watched anxiously from the safety of their camp as Pompey's army, despite its superior numbers, was routed by Caesar's well-disciplined legions. The defeat was catastrophic, and Pompey was forced to flee once again, this time to Egypt, where he sought refuge with the Ptolemaic dynasty. Cornelia accompanied Pompey on this desperate journey, her presence a source of solace for the defeated general. Yet, their arrival in Egypt marked the beginning of the end. Ptolemy XIII, the young ruler of Egypt, saw an opportunity to curry favor with Caesar and ordered Pompey's assassination. On September 28, 48 BCE, as Pompey stepped ashore at Pelusium, he was treacherously murdered by Ptolemy's men, his body left to the mercy of the sea. Cornelia, who had waited aboard the ship, was spared the immediate horrors of the scene, but was soon confronted with the devastating reality of her husband's death. Overcome with grief, she fled Egypt, eventually making her way back to Rome. There, she dedicated herself to preserving Pompey's legacy, ensuring that his memory was honored despite the triumph of his rival. Cornelia's life after Pompey's death was marked by quiet dignity. Though she had lost her husband and the power that came with being the wife of Rome's most celebrated general, she remained a respected figure in Roman society. Her loyalty and courage during Pompey's final years earned her the admiration of his supporters, and she became a symbol of steadfastness in the face of overwhelming adversity. For Pompey, Cornelia represented the final chapter of his personal life, a partner who stood by him not for political gain but out of genuine devotion. Her intelligence and strength provided him with a sense of stability as he faced the greatest challenges of his career. Even as the Republic crumbled around them, Cornelia's unwavering loyalty reminded Pompey of the personal bonds that had always been at the heart of his journey. Cornelia Metella's story is one of love and resilience, a testament to the enduring power of loyalty in a world dominated by ambition and betrayal. Her marriage to Pompey, though brief, left an indelible mark on his legacy, ensuring that his final days were not defined solely by defeat, but also by the unwavering support of a woman who believed in him until the very end. As the Republic gave way to the Empire, Cornelia's life became a quiet echo of a bygone era, a reminder of the sacrifices and loyalties that had shaped the tumultuous history of Rome. In the shadow of Pompey the Great's towering achievements and turbulent life, his children stood as living embodiments of his legacy. Born into a world defined by political intrigue, military conquests, and personal sacrifices, the offspring of Pompey and his wives carried both the weight of their father's ambitions and the burdens of his ultimate downfall. Gnaeus Pompeius, Sextus Pompeius, and Pompeia Magna, the three children of Pompey and his third wife, Mucia Tertia, grew up in a Rome that was increasingly fractured, their fates shaped by the forces that had both elevated and destroyed their father. From their earliest days, the children of Pompey were immersed in the culture of power and privilege that accompanied their lineage. Pompey's name alone was a beacon of authority in Rome, and his children were expected to uphold the family's status. Yet, their lives were far from ordinary, defined by the tumultuous political landscape of the late Republic and the seismic shifts that accompanied the rise of Julius Caesar and the eventual fall of their father. Gnaeus Pompeius, the eldest son, was groomed from an early age to follow in his father's footsteps. Tall, commanding, and ambitious, Gnaeus bore a striking resemblance to Pompey and sought to emulate his father's military prowess and political acumen. He was raised during a period when Pompey's star was at its zenith, witnessing firsthand the grand triumphs and the reverence with which his father was regarded by the Roman people. Yet, as Gnaeus grew older, he also experienced the darker side of his father's career, the betrayals, the rivalries, and the devastating consequences of ambition. Sextus Pompeius, the younger son, possessed a more complex and enigmatic character, while his elder brother exuded the confidence and charisma of their father. Sextus displayed a calculating intelligence and a knack for survival that would later define his own career. Though often overshadowed by Gnaeus in their youth, Sextus would emerge as a formidable figure in his own right, navigating the treacherous waters of Roman politics with a cunning that belied his years. Pompeia Magna, the only daughter of Pompey, occupied a different but equally significant role within the family. As a woman in Roman society, her life was shaped by the expectations and constraints placed upon her gender. But her marriage alliances and social connections were integral to Pompey's broader political strategy. Pompeia inherited her father's grace and composure, becoming a symbol of the Pompeian legacy even as the tides of history threatened to sweep it away. The lives of Pompey's children were irrevocably altered by the civil war that erupted between their father and Julius Caesar, when Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BCE, signaling the beginning of open conflict. The Pompeian family was thrust into the center of the Republic's most defining crisis. As Pompey marshaled his forces and prepared for war, his children were drawn into the maelstrom, their futures tethered to the fortunes of their father's cause. Gnaeus and Sextus joined Pompey in his campaigns, serving as symbols of continuity and hope for the Pompeian faction. They accompanied him to Greece, where Pompey gathered his forces for the decisive confrontation with Caesar. Despite their youth, the two brothers took on active roles within the military, eager to prove themselves worthy of their father's name. Pompeia, meanwhile, remained in Rome, navigating the treacherous political climate and serving as a quiet pillar of support for her family. The Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE was a turning point not only for Pompey but also for his children. As Caesar's legions decimated the Pompeian forces, Gnaeus and Sextus were forced to flee alongside their father, witnessing firsthand the devastating consequences of ambition unfulfilled. When Pompey was betrayed and murdered in Egypt, the brothers were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered legacy. Their father's death marked the end of an era, but for Gnaeus and Sextus, it was also the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by exile, rebellion, and a relentless quest for vengeance. In the aftermath of Pompey's assassination, Gnaeus and Sextus retreated to Hispania, modern-day Spain, a region that had long been a stronghold of Pompeian support. There, they rallied the remnants of their father's forces, determined to continue the fight against Caesar. For Gnaeus, this was a deeply personal mission, a chance to restore the honor of his family and reclaim the glory that had been stripped from them. Sextus, though equally committed to the cause, approached the struggle with a pragmatism that set him apart from his more idealistic brother. The brothers' efforts culminated in the Battle of Munda in 45 BCE, the final and decisive confrontation between the Pompeians and Caesar's forces. Despite their determination and the loyalty of their supporters, the battle ended in defeat for the Pompeians. Gnaeus was captured and executed shortly thereafter, his death marking the tragic end of Pompey's eldest son and the extinguishing of the hope he had represented for his family's restoration. Sextus, however, managed to escape the slaughter, retreating to the mountains of Hispania before eventually making his way to Sicily. There, he established himself as a leader of a naval rebellion, leveraging his fleet to challenge the emerging power of the Second Triumvirate. Sextus's ability to adapt and survive in the face of overwhelming odds earned him a reputation as one of the most resourceful figures of his time. For several years, he waged a guerrilla war against Rome's ruling factions, carving out a niche for himself as the last defender of the Pompeian cause. Pompeia Magna's life followed a different trajectory. As the political fortunes of her family declined, she sought to preserve the dignity of the Pompeian name through strategic marriages and alliances. Her union with Faustus Cornelius Sulla, the son of the infamous dictator, was a calculated move to secure her family's standing amidst the chaos of the Republic's transformation. Despite the challenges she faced, Pompeia remained a figure of quiet resilience, a testament to the enduring strength of the Pompeian legacy. The story of Pompey's children is one of ambition, resilience, and tragedy, a reflection of the tumultuous times in which they lived. Gnaeus and Sextus inherited their father's determination and military acumen, but their lives were shaped by the shadow of his ambitions and the weight of his failures. Pompeia, though less visible on the political stage, played a crucial role in preserving the family's honor and influence during a period of immense upheaval. As the Republic gave way to the Empire, the Pompeian name faded from the forefront of Roman politics. But the legacy of Pompey and his children endured. Their lives, marked by sacrifice and defiance, remain a testament to the enduring power of family and the unrelenting drive to shape one's destiny, even in the face of overwhelming odds. In the grand tapestry of Roman history, the children of Pompey the Great stand as symbols of a bygone era, a reminder of the human stories that lie at the heart of history's greatest transformations. In the intricate web of Roman politics, where alliances were as fleeting as they were vital, Pompey the Great wielded marriage as a weapon of diplomacy and ambition. Each of his unions was a calculated move to solidify alliances, bolster his political standing, and secure his influence across the fractious republic. While some of these marriages brought personal satisfaction, they were all shaped by the volatile dynamics of Rome's power struggles. In this chapter, we explore how Pompey's marriages served as keystones in his political strategy, building a bridge between personal relationships and public ambition. From the outset of his career, Pompey understood the importance of forging alliances through marriage. His first union, with Antistia, was emblematic of this strategy. By marrying into a respected senatorial family, Pompey sought to stabilize his early position in Roman society and align himself with local aristocrats in Picenum. Although this marriage ended in heartbreak under Sulla's manipulative pressure, it demonstrated Pompey's readiness to leverage personal relationships for political gain. The second pivotal marriage in Pompey's life, to Aemilia Scaura, was a direct result of his allegiance to Sulla. Aemilia was not just any bride. She was the stepdaughter of Rome's most powerful dictator at the time. This union represented an unmistakable signal of Pompey's loyalty to Sulla's regime. While the marriage itself was short-lived due to Aemilia's untimely death, its symbolic importance could not be overstated. Through this alliance, Pompey positioned himself as a rising star in Sulla's orbit, gaining access to critical resources and networks that propelled his military and political career. The longest and most stable marriage of Pompey's life, to Mucia Tertia, further solidified his integration into the Roman aristocracy. Mucia came from the prominent Muciae Scivoli family, known for its legal expertise and political influence. Their union spanned nearly 2 decades and was instrumental in cementing Pompey's status as a key figure in Rome's elite circles. Through Mucia, Pompey not only strengthened his ties to powerful senatorial families, but also secured heirs who would carry on his legacy. However, as with many of Pompey's alliances, this marriage eventually succumbed to the pressures of politics and personal ambition. Allegations of infidelity, whether true or fabricated, provided the pretext for their divorce, allowing Pompey to realign his personal life with his shifting political priorities. The most consequential marriage of Pompey's career was his union with Julia, the daughter of Julius Caesar. This marriage marked a high point in Pompey's political strategy, as it sealed the first triumvirate, a tenuous but powerful alliance between Pompey, Caesar, and Crassus. Julia, though young, brought grace and intelligence to the partnership, acting as a vital bridge between her husband and her father. The genuine affection that blossomed between Pompey and Julia was a rare and unexpected development in the transactional world of Roman politics. However, her untimely death during childbirth in 54 BCE shattered the alliance and set Pompey and Caesar on a collision course that would culminate in civil war. Julia's loss was not only a personal tragedy for Pompey, but also a devastating blow to his political calculations, leaving him without a key intermediary in his increasingly strained relationship with Caesar. Pompey's final marriage, to Cornelia Metella, reflected his attempt to consolidate support among the Optimates, the conservative senatorial faction that opposed Caesar's populist agenda. Cornelia's father, Metellus Scipio, was a prominent figure within the faction, and their union signaled Pompey's shift away from the triumvirate and toward a more traditional senatorial base. Cornelia, young and intelligent, provided Pompey with unwavering support during the tumultuous years of civil war. Their marriage, though politically advantageous, also carried a sense of personal loyalty that distinguished it from his earlier unions. Cornelia remained by Pompey's side through his defeat at Pharsalus and his eventual assassination in Egypt, her steadfastness serving as a poignant counterpoint to the betrayals that defined his final years. Each of Pompey's marriages reflected a different phase of his political and personal journey. Through these unions, Pompey navigated the treacherous waters of Roman power, forging alliances that propelled him to the heights of influence while also exposing the vulnerabilities of such a strategy. Marriage, for Pompey, was not merely a personal commitment but a tool of statecraft, a means to secure loyalty, resources, and legitimacy in a republic increasingly defined by its instability. Yet, the very alliances Pompey sought to strengthen through marriage often carried within them the seeds of conflict. His divorce from Antistia alienated her family, while his separation from Mucia weakened his ties to the Muciae Scivoli. Julia's death unraveled the triumvirate, and his marriage to Cornelia, though loyal and supportive, could not prevent the ultimate collapse of his cause. These relationships, while essential to his rise, also underscored the fragility of alliances built on personal ties in the volatile world of Roman politics. Pompey's use of marriage as a political instrument was emblematic of his time, a reflection of the Republic's deeply intertwined personal and public spheres. His wives were not merely bystanders in his career but active participants in the drama of Roman history, their lives and fates intricately linked to his ambitions and struggles. In their stories, we see the human side of a man often defined by his military triumphs and political rivalries. a man who, despite his greatness, was shaped as much by his personal relationships as by his public deeds. In the grand theater of Roman politics, perception was as powerful as the sword, and reputation could make or break even the most formidable leaders. For Pompey the Great, his wives played a pivotal role in shaping his public image and the way he was perceived by both his allies and enemies. These women, Antistia, Aemilia Scaura, Mucia Tertia, Julia, and Cornelia Metella, not only influenced Pompey's personal life but also left an indelible mark on his reputation as a statesman, general, and leader. Their stories, intertwined with his, reflect the intricate dance of personal ambition and public expectation that defined the late Roman Republic. From the beginning, Pompey's marriages were under scrutiny, each one a reflection of his political calculations and ambitions. His first wife, Antistia, symbolized the youthful Pompey, a man still navigating the early stages of his career. Their marriage was a modest and respectable union that aligned Pompey with a prominent senatorial family. For the people of Picenum, it signaled Pompey's connection to their region and his respect for tradition. However, the abrupt end of this marriage, demanded by Sulla as a condition of Pompey's loyalty, tainted Pompey's image with a hint of ruthlessness. The public could not ignore the personal cost of this alliance. Antistia's father, Publius Antistius, took his own life in despair, and her subsequent obscurity cast a shadow over Pompey's reputation as a man willing to sacrifice personal bonds for political gain. The marriage to Aemilia Scaura, though brief, added another layer to Pompey's public persona. As the stepdaughter of Sulla, Aemilia represented Pompey's close alignment with the most powerful man in Rome at the time. However, the circumstances surrounding their union, Aemilia's pregnancy by her previous husband and her tragic death in childbirth, stirred controversy. While the marriage reinforced Pompey's loyalty to Sulla, it also exposed him to criticism for the apparent coldness of the arrangement. This chapter in Pompey's life solidified his image as a pragmatic and calculating figure, willing to comply with political demands even at the expense of personal decency. Mucia Tertia, Pompey's third wife, contributed both stability and scandal to his reputation. For nearly 2 decades, their marriage provided Pompey with the domestic foundation needed to advance his career. Mucia bore him 3 children and managed his household during his long absences on military campaigns. However, rumors of her infidelity, which ultimately led to their divorce, became fodder for Pompey's critics. Cicero, a contemporary of Pompey, hinted at the scandal in his letters, amplifying the whispers that Mucia's alleged betrayals were more than personal. They were a public embarrassment for a man who prided himself on his honor. Although the divorce allowed Pompey to realign his political alliances, it also painted him as a man whose private life was as tumultuous as his public career. The marriage to Julia, the daughter of Julius Caesar, was a turning point in Pompey's reputation. For the first time, the public saw a more human side of the great general. Julia's youth, beauty, and grace captivated not only Pompey but also the Roman people, who admired the genuine affection between the two. Their union symbolized a rare moment of harmony in Roman politics, bridging the divide between 2 of the Republic's most powerful figures. Julia's influence tempered Pompey's ambition, making him appear more measured and statesmanlike. However, her untimely death in 54 BCE shattered this image. Without Julia's calming presence, Pompey's relationship with Caesar deteriorated, and his subsequent actions, aligning with the Optimates and preparing for civil war, revealed the more hardened and unyielding aspects of his character. Finally, Cornelia Metella, Pompey's 5th wife, added a sense of dignity and loyalty to his later years. Cornelia, known for her intelligence and poise, stood by Pompey during his most trying moments. Her unwavering support during the Civil War and her resilience after his defeat and assassination in Egypt endeared her to his supporters. Cornelia's presence softened the image of the aging Pompey, portraying him not as a defeated general but as a man who retained his humanity in the face of adversity. Her role as his loyal companion in his final years became a poignant counterpoint to the betrayals that had marked much of his career. Through these marriages, Pompey's reputation evolved, reflecting the complexities of his character and the shifting tides of Roman politics. His early unions highlighted his pragmatism and ambition, often at the expense of personal relationships. As his career progressed, the influence of women like Julia and Cornelia revealed a more nuanced and vulnerable side of Pompey, showing that even the greatest figures of history are shaped by the bonds they form. Yet, these relationships also exposed Pompey to criticism. His willingness to divorce and remarry for political advantage led some to view him as opportunistic, while the scandals surrounding Mucia and the tragedies of Aemilia and Julia painted a portrait of a man whose personal life was as fraught as his public career. In the eyes of his contemporaries, Pompey was both admired and scrutinized, his reputation a reflection of the turbulent times in which he lived. For the women in Pompey's life, their influence on his reputation was both a testament to their own agency and a reminder of the limitations imposed by Roman society. They were partners, pawns, and pillars of support, their lives intertwined with Pompey's in ways that shaped the course of Roman history. Through their stories, we gain a deeper understanding of the man behind the title of Great, a man whose legacy was as much a product of his personal relationships as his military and political triumphs. Julia's death in 54 BCE marked a profound turning point not only in Pompey the Great's life, but also in the history of the Roman Republic. As the daughter of Julius Caesar and the beloved wife of Pompey, Julia represented more than just a bridge between two of the Republic's most powerful men. She was a symbol of unity in an increasingly divided political landscape. Her passing, as sudden as it was devastating, unraveled the fragile alliance between Pompey and Caesar, setting Rome on a path toward civil war. The circumstances surrounding Julia's death were as tragic as they were emblematic of the volatile world in which she lived. Pregnant with her and Pompey's first child, Julia died during childbirth, leaving Pompey bereft and Caesar robbed of a crucial link to his once ally. For Pompey, Julia's death was more than a personal loss. It was the shattering of a rare emotional bond in a life dominated by political calculations. For Caesar, it was the loss of a stabilizing influence that had kept his relationship with Pompey intact. Julia had been a figure of immense grace and charm, qualities that made her a natural diplomat in the turbulent world of Roman politics. Her marriage to Pompey, arranged as part of the first triumvirate in 59 BCE, was a political union that unexpectedly blossomed into genuine affection. Pompey, a man hardened by years of military campaigns and political rivalries, found in Julia a source of solace and joy. Her youth and warmth softened his stoic demeanor, making him appear more relatable to the Roman public. Their relationship was a stark contrast to the transactional nature of most Roman marriages, particularly among the elite. Pompey's devotion to Julia was evident in his attentiveness and public displays of affection, which were unusual for a man of his stature. Even Caesar, known for his calculating nature, valued the union for the peace it brought between himself and Pompey. Through Julia, the triumvirate enjoyed a fleeting period of stability, as her presence tempered the ambitions and egos of the two men. But the Republic was not a place that allowed for prolonged harmony. The political landscape of Rome in the 50s BCE was rife with tension, as Caesar's growing power in Gaul and Pompey's increasing alignment with the Optimates, the conservative senatorial faction, strained their alliance. Julia, caught in the middle of these competing forces, worked tirelessly to preserve the bond between her husband and her father. Her efforts were not merely personal, they were acts of political necessity, aimed at preventing the Republic from descending into chaos. The death of Julia's child during childbirth marked the first blow, a cruel reminder of the fragility of life in an era without modern medicine. Shortly after, Julia herself succumbed to complications, leaving Pompey and Caesar to grapple with a loss that was both deeply personal and profoundly political. Her passing extinguished the last vestige of goodwill between the two men, and the carefully constructed alliance of the triumvirate began to crumble. For Pompey, Julia's death was a devastating emotional blow. Known for his resilience on the battlefield and his calculated moves in the Senate, Pompey now faced a loss he could not overcome through strategy or strength. His grief was palpable, and for a time, it seemed to sap his political will. The man who had once commanded legions with unshakable confidence now appeared diminished, his actions marked by hesitation and uncertainty. In the aftermath of Julia's death, Pompey retreated from Caesar, both emotionally and politically. Without Julia to mediate, the simmering tensions between the two men boiled over. Pompey's growing distrust of Caesar, fueled by his own ambitions and the urgings of the Optimates, led him to distance himself from his former ally. Caesar, for his part, viewed Pompey's withdrawal as a betrayal, setting the stage for the rivalry that would define the final years of the Republic. The political ramifications of Julia's death were immediate and far-reaching. With the bond between Pompey and Caesar severed, the Republic descended into a series of escalating conflicts. Pompey's marriage to Cornelia Metella shortly after Julia's death, while politically advantageous, did little to heal the rift. Instead, it signaled Pompey's full alignment with the Optimates and his commitment to opposing Caesar's rise. The civil war that erupted in 49 BCE, when Caesar crossed the Rubicon, was the inevitable result of this breakdown in their relationship. Julia's absence was keenly felt in the early years of the war. Her death removed the one figure who might have been able to bridge the divide between Pompey and Caesar. Without her calming influence, Pompey became more entrenched in his position, and Caesar, unencumbered by familial ties, pursued his ambitions with relentless determination. The loss of Julia thus not only marked the end of an era for Pompey but also accelerated the collapse of the Republic itself. Even among the Roman people, Julia's death was mourned as a tragedy. Her grace and dignity had endeared her to the public, and her untimely passing was seen as a harbinger of the turmoil to come. In the years that followed, her memory became a poignant symbol of what might have been, a fleeting moment of unity in a world torn apart by ambition and rivalry. For Pompey, Julia remained a cherished memory, a source of both sorrow and inspiration. As he faced Caesar on the battlefield and navigated the political intrigues of his final years, Pompey carried with him the weight of her loss. Julia's influence, though brief, left an indelible mark on his life, shaping his actions and decisions even as he marched toward his ultimate fate. The tragedy of Julia's death serves as a reminder of the human cost of Rome's relentless pursuit of power. Her life, though cut short, exemplified the potential for unity and understanding in a republic increasingly defined by division. In the grand narrative of Pompey the Great, Julia's story is a chapter of profound significance, a moment of light in a life shadowed by ambition and conflict, and a symbol of the fragility of peace in a world consumed by strife. The Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE was a defining moment not only for Pompey the Great but also for his wife, Cornelia Metella, who witnessed the collapse of her husband's once mighty ambitions. Standing on the shores of Greece, Cornelia watched helplessly as Caesar's legions decimated Pompey's forces, and the man she had steadfastly supported was forced to flee. What followed was a tale of resilience and tragedy, as Cornelia's loyalty to her husband was tested in the darkest chapter of their lives. Cornelia Metella had married Pompey at the height of his power. As the daughter of Quintus Caecilius Metellus Scipio, she brought with her a lineage of wealth and influence, as well as a strong political alliance with the Optimates, the senatorial faction opposing Caesar. Intelligent and well-educated, Cornelia was more than just a trophy wife. She was a partner who shared in Pompey's aspirations and struggles. Yet, when Pompey's fortunes turned, Cornelia proved to be more than a political asset. She became a symbol of loyalty and defiance in the face of overwhelming adversity. After their devastating defeat at Pharsalus, Pompey and Cornelia fled to the island of Lesbos, where Cornelia had been staying during the campaign. When Pompey arrived, He was no longer the confident general who had commanded legions with ease. He was a man on the run, hunted and desperate, his confidence shattered by the loss of his army and the betrayal of his allies. Cornelia, however, did not waver. She welcomed her husband with open arms, offering him comfort and encouragement even as the walls of their world crumbled around them. Together, they planned their next move, hoping to find refuge in Egypt, where Pompey had once aided the Ptolemaic dynasty in securing the throne. Cornelia remained by his side as they sailed across the Mediterranean, her composure and courage a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. She believed, as did Pompey, that Egypt would provide the sanctuary they needed to regroup and rebuild. Little did they know, the shores of Egypt would become the site of Pompey's ultimate betrayal. On September 28, 48 BCE, as Pompey disembarked at Pelusium to meet the Egyptian court, Cornelia watched from the safety of their ship. She had insisted on staying close, fearing for her husband's safety but trusting in his judgment. What unfolded next was a scene of unspeakable horror. As Pompey approached the welcoming party, Egyptian soldiers, acting on orders from King Ptolemy XIII, stabbed him to death before he could even set foot on land. Cornelia could only watch in horror as the man she had loved and followed into exile was murdered in cold blood. The shock of Pompey's death was overwhelming, but Cornelia's ordeal was far from over. Fearing for her own life, she and the remaining members of Pompey's entourage fled the Egyptian coastline, carrying with them the grief of their loss and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Cornelia's escape was a harrowing journey, marked by constant danger and the looming threat of capture. Yet, through it all, she remained steadfast, determined to honor Pompey's memory and ensure his legacy would not be forgotten. Upon her return to Rome, Cornelia faced a city transformed by Caesar's dominance. The Pompeian faction had been thoroughly defeated, and many of its leaders were either dead or in hiding. Cornelia, however, refused to fade into obscurity. Drawing on her family's influence and her own resilience, she worked tirelessly to preserve Pompey's memory, advocating for the protection of his estate and the welfare of his surviving children. Her efforts earned her the respect of many, even among Caesar's supporters, who admired her dignity and resolve. Cornelia's life after Pompey's death was defined by quiet defiance. She retreated from public life but remained a central figure in her extended family, ensuring that the Pompeian legacy endured. Her resilience served as an inspiration to those who had supported Pompey, a reminder that even in the face of crushing defeat, the ideals he had fought for could not be entirely extinguished. For Cornelia, the years following Pompey's death were marked by reflection and mourning. She never remarried, dedicating herself instead to her children and the preservation of her husband's legacy. Though the republic she and Pompey had fought to protect would soon be replaced by the empire, Cornelia's unwavering loyalty to her husband's memory ensured that his story would not be forgotten. Cornelia's defiance in the wake of Pompey's fall is a testament to the strength and resilience of a woman often overshadowed by her husband's towering legacy. Her courage in the face of tragedy and her determination to honor Pompey's memory make her an integral part of his story, a symbol of loyalty and perseverance in a world dominated by betrayal and ambition. Through Cornelia, Pompey's legacy lived on, even as the Republic crumbled around her, and her story stands as a reminder of the enduring power of love and loyalty in the face of overwhelming odds. The life of Pompey the Great was a tapestry woven with triumphs, tragedies, and the enduring influence of the women who stood beside him, from the quiet resilience of Antistia to the defiance of Cornelia Metella. These women shaped not only the man but also the history that swirled around him. Their stories, though often overshadowed by the grandeur of Pompey's military conquests and political maneuvers, offer a profound insight into the human cost of ambition and the power of loyalty in a time of relentless upheaval. Antistia, Pompey's first wife, symbolized the innocence and simplicity of his early life. Her marriage to Pompey, though brief, was a reminder of the sacrifices demanded by political ambition. The loss of her father and her forced separation from Pompey left scars that would ripple through the rest of his career. Antistia's story remains a testament to the personal toll of Pompey's rise and the harsh realities of Roman political life. With Aemilia Scaura, Pompey entered into a union orchestrated by Sulla, a marriage that epitomized the transactional nature of Roman alliances. Aemilia's death, shortly after their wedding, was a somber chapter in Pompey's journey, marking the sacrifices he was willing to endure to align himself with Rome's most powerful man. Her role, though brief, underscored Pompey's pragmatism and his readiness to submit personal desires to political necessity. Mucia Tertia, the mother of Pompey's children, provided stability during a critical phase of his career. For nearly 2 decades, their marriage allowed Pompey to focus on his military and political ambitions. Yet, the rumors of infidelity and the subsequent divorce reflected the fragile nature of personal bonds in the face of political ambition. Mucia's enduring impact lay in her children, particularly Gnaeus and Sextus Pompeius, who carried forward the Pompeian legacy, even as they faced the turbulent collapse of the Republic. Julia, the daughter of Julius Caesar, brought an unprecedented level of affection and genuine partnership into Pompey's life. Her marriage to Pompey was a rare fusion of love and politics, a union that momentarily bridged the divide between 2 of Rome's greatest figures. Julia's tragic death marked the beginning of the end, not only for Pompey's alliance with Caesar, but also for the Republic itself. Her passing shattered the tenuous balance of power and set the stage for the civil war that would ultimately claim Pompey's life. Finally, Cornelia Metella, Pompey's last wife, embodied loyalty and grace during his darkest hours. Her unwavering support as Pompey faced defeat and exile was a beacon of strength, and her resilience in the aftermath of his assassination ensured that his legacy endured. Cornelia's steadfastness in preserving Pompey's memory, even as the Republic fell to Caesar's dominance, solidified her place as one of the most remarkable women of her time. The women in Pompey's life were not merely passive figures. They were active participants in his journey, influencing his decisions, shaping his image, and bearing the weight of his ambitions. Through their stories, we see the human side of Pompey, a man who, despite his greatness, was shaped by the love, loyalty, and sacrifices of those closest to him. As the Republic gave way to the Empire, Pompey's name faded from the forefront of Roman politics. Yet his legacy remained. The sons he fathered, the alliances he forged, and the memories he left behind continued to echo in the corridors of Roman history. The women who shared his life, each in their unique way, contributed to the mosaic of his legacy, reminding us that even the most powerful figures are shaped by the relationships that define them. In the end, Pompey's story is not just the tale of a general and statesman. It is the story of a man whose life was deeply intertwined with those who loved, challenged, and supported him. The women in his life, with their courage, intelligence, and loyalty, were an inseparable part of that story, leaving behind a legacy that endures as a testament to the complexities of power, love, and sacrifice in one of history's most tumultuous eras.